She closed my textbook before I could finish the sentence. The soft thud of the cover was louder than it should have been in that quiet evening, the kind of quiet that hums between two people who've been pretending not to notice it building. I looked up, and she was already watching me. Dr. Yunha Park. 45. Elegant in the way time refines, not erases. A silk blouse the color of early dusk, sleeves rolled just enough to show the faint scar on her wrist, the kind that makes you wonder what story it hides. She didn't need to speak loudly, she had that calm gravity that made the world slow down around her. And I was just 26, a graduate assistant who was supposed to be learning ethics in communication, not how to keep my pulse steady when she leaned close enough for me to smell bergamot and faint ink. Some lessons, she said, her voice almost a hum, can't be taught in words. She didn't move right away after saying it. Her fingers lingered on the closed book, her nails short and neat, her skin warm against the paper. The room felt too small, too still, even the old wall clock seemed to hesitate between seconds. I should have said something. Anything. But my throat had gone dry, and every possible sentence sounded childish next to her quiet certainty. She tilted her head, eyes narrowing just slightly, studying me the way she did with her students when she wanted to see what truth they'd hide behind politeness. "You're thinking too hard again," she murmured. I just... The words tangled before they even began. I laughed softly, the way people do when they're trying to diffuse their own nervousness. She smiled, not wide, but slow and knowing. "There it is," she said. "That look." "What look?" Her gaze flicked down to my hands, clenched too tightly on the desk, then back to my face. "The one that asks for permission." I forgot to breathe for a moment. Outside, rain pressed lightly against the tall windows of her office. The lamplight turned her skin gold, shadows brushing along her collarbone when she leaned against the edge of the desk. Every small movement felt deliberate, like she was aware of the space she took up and what it did to the air around her. "I don't want to cross a line," I said quietly. Her laugh was soft, almost kind. "You're already standing on it." The silence that followed wasn't empty, it was dense, full of things neither of us dared to name. My heartbeat filled my ears. She reached for my pen, just that simple motion, and her fingers grazed mine. Warm. Intentional. I should have looked away. I didn't. Her eyes held mine dark and calm, but there was something behind them, a flicker of curiosity, or maybe regret. She drew a slow breath, and for a moment, I thought she'd say something reckless. Instead, she let the pen fall. It rolled across the desk and landed between us, a small, absurd sound that snapped the spell in half. She straightened, tucking a loose strand of hair behind her ear. The confidence returned to her posture, the distance restored in the tilt of her chin. "You should go," she said softly. "It's late." I nodded, even though I didn't move. "Tomorrow," she added, after a beat too long. "Bring the same book." Her voice softened at the edges, like she was already regretting the command. Then, just as I reached for my bag, a knock echoed at the office door, sharp, unexpected. Her eyes flicked toward it, then back to me. For a fraction of a second, her hand brushed mine again under the desk. "Don't say anything," she whispered. The doorknob turned. The next evening, I arrived earlier than usual. The hallway outside her office was quiet, the kind of quiet that makes you question your own footsteps. Through the frosted glass, I could see her silhouette, seated still, one hand tracing the rim of her teacup. I knocked once. "Come in," she said without looking up. She wore the same scent, faint citrus and something woody, and the same guarded calm. But there was something in her eyes tonight, a softness that looked almost tired. "You're early," she said. "I didn't have anywhere else to be," I answered before thinking. That earned a small, knowing smile. "You're young. There's always somewhere else to be." I wanted to tell her she was wrong, that lately, every place that wasn't here felt like a waiting room. But instead I set my bag down and opened the book again, pretending to study. She watched me for a moment before standing, moving to the shelves behind me. The air shifted when she passed, her sleeve brushing against my arm, the faint static of skin meeting fabric. "You remind me of someone," she said quietly. I looked up. "Someone good?" She hesitated. "Someone who left when he still had time to stay." Her voice faltered on the last word, and for a heartbeat I saw something raw, regret maybe, or the echo of it. I wanted to ask who he was, but her posture already told me she wouldn't answer. "I wasn't easy to love back then," she continued, half smiling to herself. "Maybe I'm still not." I shook my head before I could stop myself. "That's not true." She turned, too sharply, and our eyes met. The distance between us suddenly felt too thin. "You shouldn't say that," she murmured. "I didn't mean yes, you did." Her tone wasn't angry. It was something worse, honest. The kind of honesty that cuts softly. For a long second, either of us moved. I could hear the faint hum of the heater, the scratch of rain against the window. Her hand rested on the back of my chair, not quite touching, but close enough that I could feel the warmth radiating from her skin. "You know how this looks," she said finally. "People see things they shouldn't." I nodded. "Then let them see. They don't know what it means." Her breath caught, barely audible, and for a moment I thought she'd laugh. Instead, she exhaled through her nose, slow, measured. "You're too certain," she said softly. "That's dangerous." Her hand slipped, brushing my shoulder, a fleeting touch that burned longer than it should have. When she pulled away, I almost reached for her, but she stepped back, putting the desk between us again. We didn't speak after that. She pretended to read my notes, I pretended to write. But every minute stretched thinner, drawn by the quiet current neither of us dared name. When I finally stood to leave, she looked up from the page and said, almost gently, "You learn quickly." "From you," I said. Her lips curved into a small, careful smile, the kind people give when they're about to break a rule and know it. Then, without another word, she reached across the desk and fixed the collar of my shirt, her fingers trembling just once before pulling away. The silence that followed was heavier than any goodbye. It was supposed to be a short review session, 20 minutes, maybe 30. But time had a habit of bending around her. The classroom was empty except for us. Evening light pooled through the blinds, striping her desk with gold and shadow. She stood beside me, leaning just enough to look at my notes. Her perfume was softer today, maybe soap, maybe skin, and I couldn't focus on the words in front of me. "Your argument's clear," she said, her voice low, thoughtful. "But you're hiding behind theory again. Say what you actually think." "I don't think you'd like it," I said before I could stop myself. She glanced at me, one eyebrow raised. "Try me." My throat tightened. The words felt too heavy to let out. So I just looked at her instead, really looked. The faint crease at the corner of her mouth, the way a lock of hair had fallen against her cheek. I wanted to reach out and move it. I didn't. She noticed. Of course she did. Her eyes softened, and for a split second, she didn't look like my professor at all. Just a woman, tired, curious, caught off guard by the same pull I felt. Then her phone buzzed on the desk. We both flinched. A message preview flashed across the screen. "Dinner tonight? Miss you. Jay." She snatched it up quickly, turned it face down. Too quickly. I looked away, pretending I hadn't read it, but my chest tightened anyway. I didn't know who Jay was, a friend, an ex, someone still half in her life. I told myself it didn't matter, that it wasn't my place. But it did matter. "Sorry," she murmured. "I should've, it's nothing." The tremor in her voice betrayed her. For once, she looked unsure. I wanted to ask, but instead I said, "You don't have to explain." She looked at me for a long moment. "You make it very hard to keep this professional." Something inside me shifted, not pride, not triumph. Just the quiet acknowledgement of something we both already knew. The air felt different after that. Thicker. She took a step closer. So did I. Her hand brushed mine on the desk, a feather's touch, then lingered there, not quite pulling away. Her eyes darted between mine and my mouth, just once, before she drew a slow breath. I shouldn't, she whispered. I know. Her pulse fluttered in her throat, visible in the lamplight. I could feel her warmth through the space between us, that narrow, trembling distance that dared to close itself. And then, the door creaked. A voice in the hallway. Another student's laughter. She froze. Our hands slipped apart. Go, she whispered, almost pleading. Now. I gathered my things, my heartbeat a mess of sound. Just as I reached the door, she spoke again, barely audible. This isn't fair to you. I turned back. Then don't make it unfair. She didn't answer, just stood there, the fading sunlight cutting across her face, eyes torn between caution and something far more dangerous. When the door shut behind me, I caught my reflection in the glass, her silhouette still visible on the other side, motionless. Neither of us moved. Neither of us walked away. The rain returned that night, a steady whisper against the windows of her office. I hadn't planned to see her, but my feet brought me there anyway. Maybe I wanted to end the tension. Maybe I just wanted to hear her voice when she wasn't guarded by daylight. She looked surprised when she opened the door. Tired, yes, but not angry. You shouldn't be here, she said, though she didn't tell me to leave. I know, I said. But I can't keep pretending it's nothing. Her eyes searched mine for something, restraint, regret, maybe an exit. You think this is easy for me? She asked quietly. I shook my head. Then why do you look at me like that? She opened her mouth, then closed it again. The silence that followed wasn't cold, it pulsed alive. The sound of rain filled the cracks between our breaths. Because, she finally whispered, you remind me of who I used to be. I stepped closer before I could think better of it. Then stop running from her. Her breath hitched, audible, sharp. I could smell the faint trace of her tea on her breath, warm and earthy. Her blouse was damp at the sleeves, the fabric clinging to her skin. She looked like she wanted to take a step back but couldn't. You don't understand, she said, her voice trembling now. You're still beginning. I'm already. She trailed off, eyes glistening. Already what? I asked softly. Her fingers tightened around the edge of the desk. Already broken in ways I don't want you to see. I reached out before I could stop myself. My hand found hers, cold, small, and tense, and she didn't pull away. Her skin felt like a secret, something I wasn't meant to touch but couldn't unlearn once I did. You think I care about that? I said. I notice everything about you, the way you stop talking mid-sentence when you're about to say something real, how you look away when I look too long. I notice, and I still don't. She cut in, her voice barely more than a breath. Don't finish that. Why not? Her eyes lifted to mine, full of fear, full of want. Because once you say it, I won't be able to pretend anymore. The air between us tightened. Every sound outside faded. I could see her pulse racing in her throat, could feel the heat radiating from her body. Then don't pretend, I whispered. She reached up, almost absently, brushing my wet hair off my forehead. Her fingertips lingered there, trembling. Then she drew a slow, uneven breath and stepped closer, so close I could feel the faint tremor in her chest when she exhaled. You have no idea what this would cost, she murmured. Then let me pay it. Her lips parted, a fraction of a breath away from mine, the distance fragile, breakable. Her eyes fluttered shut. And then, a knock. Sharp. Urgent. She froze, every muscle tense. Through the door, a voice called her name. Dr. Park? Her hand dropped. The moment shattered like glass. She turned away, her voice suddenly composed. You need to go. But now. The knock came again. I hesitated, just long enough for her to whisper, almost too softly to hear. If you stay, I won't stop you. The door handle turned. The next morning, she didn't come to class. The chair at the front stayed empty, her name half erased from the board. Students whispered theories, sick leave, conference, burnout, but no one looked at me. No one knew I'd been standing in that same office 12 hours ago, with her breath still warm on my skin when the knock came. By evening, I couldn't take it. I went back. Her door was closed, light spilling through the crack at the bottom. I hesitated, then heard a voice inside. A man's voice. Jay. I thought immediately. I should have walked away. Instead, I knocked. The door opened halfway. She stood there, startled, pale. Behind her, a tall man in his late 40s adjusted his tie, his posture too familiar, too comfortable in her space. Ah, he said, glancing between us. One of your students? She hesitated a second too long. Yes, she said finally, her voice brittle. He was just leaving. But I hadn't even entered. The man smiled at me, polite, dismissive. I'll wait in the car, he told her. Don't take too long. When he left, she closed the door slowly, leaning her forehead against it for a moment before turning to me. Who was he? I asked. Someone I should have let go a long time ago. Her tone was too calm, the kind of calm that hurts to watch. Your husband? She flinched, just slightly. Ex. Almost. It's complicated. I let out a short laugh I didn't mean to. Everything with you is complicated. Her eyes met mine, not angry, just tired. You think I planned any of this? I don't know what you planned, I said. But you keep drawing me in and then acting like it's my fault for following. The silence that fell after that felt heavier than shouting. She walked past me, her shoulder brushing mine. You don't understand the cost, she murmured. Then make me understand. She stopped near her desk, fingers trembling as she reached for her teacup, empty. Her voice cracked, barely audible. He's on the board. If anyone found out. I felt the blood drain from my face. You mean he, yes, she cut in, eyes closing. He's not just my ex. He's the one deciding whether I stay in this position next semester. The truth hit like cold water, everything suddenly too real, too fragile. I took a step closer. Then tell him. Tell him it's over. Her eyes opened, sharp now, almost angry. You think it's that easy? You think feelings erase consequences? I wanted to argue, but her voice softened before I could. Don't you see? She said, her breath trembling. You're the first person who's made me forget to be careful. That terrifies me. The room pulsed with something unspoken. I moved toward her, slowly, and she didn't move away this time. Our hands brushed, fingers catching just long enough to feel everything unsaid. I don't care who he is, I whispered. Her lips parted, but her answer came as a whisper caught between fear and want. You should. She exhaled, stepped closer, her forehead resting against my chest, a surrender and a warning in one. Then she lifted her head, eyes shining. Meet me tomorrow, she said. No books. No classroom. Her voice trembled. If I show up, it means I've chosen. It rained again. Harder this time, not the soft drizzle that whispered against her windows, but a storm that seemed to push everything forward, like the night itself refused to stay still. I waited outside the small cafe she had chosen. It wasn't far from campus, but hidden enough, a quiet corner tucked behind trees, the kind of place where secrets could breathe for a while before they broke. She arrived late. No umbrella, hair damp, coat clinging to her shoulders. Her eyes found mine instantly, and for a moment neither of us spoke. You came, I said. She nodded, breathless. I almost didn't. I stepped closer, close enough to see raindrops trembling along her lashes. But you did. Her lips curved into something that wasn't quite a smile. I told myself I wouldn't. Then I kept walking anyway. Inside, the cafe was nearly empty, dim lights, the soft hum of a jazz record spinning somewhere unseen. We sat in the farthest booth, across from each other, hands folded, cups untouched. It should have felt like relief, but it didn't. It felt like standing on the edge of something neither of us could name. I told him, she said suddenly. I blinked. Your ex? She nodded. That it's over. That it's been over. He didn't take it well. Her hands were shaking slightly, fingers tracing the rim of her cup. I wanted to reach across, but she looked too fragile to touch, like one wrong move would make her disappear. I'm not asking for anything, I said. Not promises, not labels. Just honesty. She laughed, a small, broken sound. That's exactly what terrifies me. The rain outside grew louder, rattling the glass. I leaned in, lowering my voice. Then tell me what's real. Her eyes met mine, raw and unguarded. This, she whispered. Every time you look at me like I'm not something ruined. Something in me broke open. I reached across the table, slowly, until my fingers brushed hers. She didn't pull away. Her thumb moved first, tracing my knuckle, hesitant but deliberate. You shouldn't want me, she murmured. I already do. Her breath caught. The space between us collapsed, not sudden, but inevitable. Her hand slid from mine to my wrist, holding it there, grounding herself. I've spent half my life keeping distance, she said, voice shaking. From people, from mistakes, from myself. And now I can't even remember why. Then stop remembering, I whispered. She stood, moving around the table until she was standing close enough for me to feel the warmth radiating through her coat. The air thickened with silence, with everything unsaid. Her hand lifted to my face, trembling, gentle, brushing a raindrop from my cheek. If I do this, she said softly, it can't be undone. I looked at her, the woman who had undone me without ever meaning to, and said, maybe it was never supposed to be undone. For a heartbeat, everything stopped. Her eyes closed, her breath mingling with mine. The distance between us vanished, not with a kiss, but with stillness. A quiet surrender. When she finally stepped back, her voice was barely a whisper. Now you know. And I did. Not what would happen next, but what it finally meant to see her without fear. The storm had passed by morning, leaving the city washed and quiet. The cafe's windows were fogged with the scent of coffee and damp wood, the faint echo of rain still clinging to the glass. She sat beside me now, not across the table, not hidden behind titles or boundaries, just beside me. Her hair was still a little damp, curling at the ends, and she smiled like the kind of calm that only comes after chaos. Neither of us spoke at first. The silence felt different now, no longer heavy, just full. You didn't sleep, she said softly. Did you? She smiled. Barely. We both laughed, quietly, the kind of laughter that isn't about humor but relief. There was no plan. No script. Just this strange, impossible morning that felt like a truce with everything we'd been afraid of. She looked down at her hands, bare now, no ring, no pretense, and said, Do you know what I kept thinking last night? I shook my head. That I should let you go, she said. That I should be the adult, the rational one. But then, she turned her head, her eyes meeting mine with a softness that felt like gravity. Then I realized I don't want to teach myself out of feeling something real again. I didn't answer. I just reached for her hand, slow, certain, and she let me take it. Our fingers fit like they'd been waiting to learn that shape. Outside, sunlight finally broke through the clouds, spreading gold across her face. She blinked into it, her skin glowing, her expression unguarded for the first time since I'd met her. I keep worrying about what people will say, she admitted. About what it looks like. I don't, I said quietly. Because they don't see what I see. She tilted her head, curiosity flickering behind her tired smile. And what do you see? I hesitated, then answered. Someone who finally stopped pretending she doesn't deserve to be seen. She exhaled, long and shaky, and leaned in, not to kiss me, but to rest her forehead against mine. That simple, human closeness felt more intimate than anything else could have been. Her breath warmed my skin. You'll still leave someday, she whispered. That's how life works. I know, I said. But not today. We stayed like that, hands intertwined, eyes closed, the city waking slowly around us, The storm had broken something open between us, and for once, neither of us tried to name it or fix it. When she finally pulled back, she looked lighter. Some lessons, she said, smiling faintly, still can't be taught in words. I smiled back. I know. I learned that from you. She laughed then, low and real, and I knew that whatever we were, student and teacher, woman and man, past and future, it wasn't wrong anymore. It was simply ours. Outside, the morning stretched wide and quiet, like an open page waiting to be written on. Did you enjoy the story? What kind of stories would you like to hear next?